Today, we're spending the day on the Shopify checkout. Check out. In a world where the only guarantee is that constant change is inevitable, the checkout is the one part of the customer journey that stays true. So I've grabbed some time with Blake Waldron, who has spent years building Shopify stores and has doubled down on making the checkout great for merchants by building his app checkout components. We're going to jump straight into it, but first a quick shout out to our sponsors, the Support Heroes, who provide support for hundreds of Shopify apps around the world. And make sure you check out the checkout playbook that we've put together to go with this episode and the playbooks we've created for other topics such as Stork Credit and Shopify Flow. Hit like, subscribe, share, and call up your local talkback radio station to tell them about the Shopify app show. Let's go. What makes a good checkout on Shopify?
That's a good question. Very broad. I think the thing that for me that defines a good checkout is a checkout that doesn't necessarily assume that all customers want to see the same thing. What we're starting to see really have an impact is, merchants starting to think about, okay, is this a first time buyer? Is it a guest checkout? What does that customer care about? And at the point of purchase, it's a critical point. What information do they need to see to not get cold feet to click that pay now button? So, what USPs are being rendered, and that could be different compared to a returning customer. So I think a good checkout, at least at a very minimum, takes that sort of returning customer versus first-time customer consideration. And then if you can extend that to, particularly if you're selling overseas, what information might an international buyer want to see, particularly around, something that we're seeing a lot of merchants using our product do, is conversion focused trust badges around, if it's an Australian business selling to the US, like all tariffs and duties are covered, included in product pricing. Like that's a unique, message for that particular type of buyer. So I would say at a very bare minimum, it's about trying to, reduce cold feet in a way. And then, the extension of that would be, my team and I always say, like, you should always have an always on upsell. So always show something, because you never know. You never know if a customer is going to be like, oh, that's distracting, or it's, okay, yeah, maybe I really do want that pair of socks. Funnily enough, in 2025, checkout components processed over 10,000 units of socks across various merchants.
It's the most obvious thing, isn't it? You're buying shoes, get some socks. It's pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, that's a really simple thing that you can do. And it's relevant to pretty much every customer. Everyone likes new socks. So I'd say that's probably like where I would set. That's a good checkout. A great checkout is going, beyond that, looking at, most customers. Is a Baymard Institute document that was released, not too long ago. And it was basically saying that most customers don't know the free shipping threshold. So it's like, if you've got an upsell that clearly defines like, hey, you're $20 away from free shipping. Do you want to buy a $20 product and then you get free shipping, and you're basically, kind of getting it for $10? And like that to me is like that next step. But there's so many different like tiers, I would say, and it depends on what type of products you sell.
Yeah, but it's like just from the way you're talking, like you've sort of answered my next question a little bit already. But it's amazing. There's a lot of people still not doing that. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, I think we're coming from a world where, like, we're going back a couple of years now. Checkout.liquid was very locked down on Shopify. And, Shopify invested in this space and they created a new version of Shopify. And a lot of people, particularly replatformers, they'll replatform from Salesforce and Magento. They'll get to Shopify, and a lot of the communication that's online and that a lot of Shopperfolk push is like, Shopify's got the world's best checkout, which in my opinion, it definitely does. So they say, well, why would we touch it? It's a high converting checkout. We've got the option of being 3-step versus 1-step. This is good. And to that, I would say, like, one of the reasons why it's so great is, Shopify developed the foundational technology of checkout extensibility. So there was the intention from the very beginning for merchants to customize checkout and get creative in this space. So there is we're seeing less of it now. there is some reservations around like, oh, we don't want to change it, or we don't know what to do, or we don't want to distract the
Mm.
customer. And like, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. The
Yeah.
advice that we always give merchants is like, really think about the types of customers and what they want to see or what's potentially going to help them. And then if you can back that with A/B testing and analytics, so you're making informed decisions, then checkout on Shopify is actually one of the most powerful things that a merchant can focus on, because ultimately a 2% increase in conversion in checkout is
Mm.
significantly larger than doing a 2% increase in conversion on the product page.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something you touched on before around like just have an upsell on every checkout. Like,
Yeah.
to me, it's not just a no-brainer, but I'd love to hear. Yeah, you've obviously got stats to back that up as well in terms of just
Yep.
showing that people don't drop off if they're offered a pair of socks, do they? Just as they don't
No.
walk away from the shop. If you're at Rebel Sport buying a new pair of footy boots and they say, "Do you want to buy a pair of socks?" It's not going to put you off buying the footy boots, is it?
No, and like, I was at the chemist the other day, and like Booty's one of the merchants that uses our product. And like there was Booty underwear and socks on the counter.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, like they're upselling, at retail as well. Like you're basically bringing an existing practice that's been, widely used in retail, and then bringing that same experience online. So customers are used to it. Of course, if you're overwhelming customers, then you've got, 12 different products showing in checkout at once, and like you're thinking, where is the checkout form? That is definitely going to impact conversion. But one of the things that I would advocate for is, if you're really not sure, you know, render these components or render upsells exclusively to returning customers.
Yeah.
And like that's a really safe way to do it. Those customers know your brand. It's a good exercise for you to just look at a particular segment and see how people are responding to that, what you may consider distracting. But in the majority of instances, like there's a couple of merchants that use our product pretty intensely and
Mm.
checkout, and they've used our analytics system. They've used pushing data into GA4, and the AOV lift and conversion and upsells offsets any drop off in checkout. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, awesome. And the other thing I was going to ask you about checkout, because I know this is something I see a bit of, is like obviously you've got the ShopPay checkout as well, which it's really hard to explain to people, isn't it? That you've got the Shopify checkout and then you've got the ShopPay journey,
Yeah.
and people can sort of end up in different funnels there. And I can imagine that's something with what the work you're doing with checkout components. I can imagine it's firstly a little bit tricky to explain, but secondly, also, how do you customize those journeys for the different, the different ways people are coming through the checkout?
Well, that's a really good point. So there is a toggle on checkout extensions in Shopify which says render in ShopPay. There isn't the inverse of that. You can't say like only render in ShopPay, and so like checkout apps like checkout components, needs to have functionality to make that determination. But a lot of people add extensions to their checkout and not check that ShopPay toggle. And I was at dinner last night with a group of friends, and I was talking to a friend about our product, and she opened up one of our merchants, Henny, and she was instantly drawn into ShopPay. And I was like, oh, okay, so like I was curious. I was like, what's your opinion on ShopPay? And she's like, I love it. It's amazing. Like it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And I think I recall seeing a document the other day that was saying like in Australia, it's like 50% of customers or something like that use ShopPay, which is ridiculous. So it's like, okay, knowing that, it's really important for merchants to make sure that they've turned that on, to make sure that if they are upselling, if they do have conversion content. So yeah, I would advocate, if you're using checkout extensions, regardless of what app you're using, just double check that you're showing it to ShopPay customers.
Yeah, for sure. And do you see any roadblocks people still have, like where they can't use ShopPay? Because there are some scenarios where it potentially doesn't work so well for people if they're trying to capture lots of really complex information, or they've got to provide certain shipping options and stuff like that. So are there limitations like that you're still seeing and having to solve for?
I think like there are some like UX concerns around ShopPay, because it has saved addresses, saved payments. So sometimes like customers will just be like, oh yeah, pay now, and they go, oh whoops. But in the majority of instances, the checkout extensibility API and hooks are shared between Shopify Checkout and ShopPay. So whatever experience you can create in Shopify Checkout, you can effectively create in ShopPay. Obviously, there's a dependency on ShopPay for merchants to be on the Shopify platform or that specific plan that Shopify has recently released to add ShopPay to any e-commerce website.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for, if you're a merchant in Australia, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, you got to make sure that you're across what's happening in ShopPay.
Yeah, that's it. It's almost like I was saying this a couple of years ago that like ShopPay was almost going to be the new Afterpay. It's sort of become a verb now, hasn't it? That people, that's a way of paying for stuff, and I think it's almost a good thing too, isn't it? It's pushed people back to not using those higher transaction fee gateways like Afterpay as much because it's just so easy to use that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't start a Shopify store to spend your weekends answering "Where's my order?" emails. The Support Heroes are a team of trained Shopify support specialists who plug into your help desk, learn your brand voice, and handle your tickets like they actually give a shit. Because they do. Email, chat, social, the lot. You get your evenings back, your customers get faster replies, and your customer satisfaction goes up. Head to thesupportheroes.com and tell them I sent you. The Support Heroes. Actual heroes for your Shopify ad. And one from me, Stork Credit. Discount codes are eating your margin and training your customers to wait for the next sale. Loyalty points are tedious, boring, stale, and your customers just don't care. Stork Credit is the dead simple, native-built Shopify app for issuing store credit instead of discounts, instead of giving Klaviyo another reason to spam your list, instead of issuing points that mean nothing. Customers spend it, they spend more of it, and it's free to install and get started. Try it today. I'm going to flip now to probably the headline that you see people talking about now is everything around agentic commerce. And so I guess part of that is like we're seeing this, I call it like a seesaw really, that people are one day it's saying everyone's going to be transacting in ChatGPT. Next day, ChatGPT's pulled off their functionality to do that. But I think the core fundamentals of having a good checkout to go through it seems like for now that's still really important. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how things are shifting and how we need to actually cater for this move to more of the conversations happening outside of the platform?
Yeah, so obviously, being a founder of the type of products that I've created, I've been watching and monitoring that very closely, and the communication even 3-4 months ago was a little bit different to what it was 2 months ago, and then now it's different today. What's been really interesting is the backflip that occurred from OpenAI and the research that with that handful, I think it was 12 merchants in the US, customers using AI chats to discover and find brands and products, and then actually preferring to go direct to those websites to check out. So that's that flip, right? So rather than people like paying in ChatGPT, that's obviously a behavior that at least consumers now are not comfortable with, which I can understand, to be honest, because it's such new technology. So there probably is a realm in 5-10 years where that becomes quite a normal thing. Like, we've got to think about, younger generations that have, they've entered their teens and there's always been AI. They're likely going to be that generation that feels more comfortable, putting, saving their credit card in ChatGPT and making transactions through AI. But at least for now, something that's really exciting for me is that, and like working with merchants really closely, because, we're a turnkey app on, the Shopify App Store, but we do a lot of, assistance, particularly with onboarding and strategy and all that kind of stuff for merchants. We kind of create a playbook from day one for each merchant that installs our product. Checkout is now the only guaranteed touch point of every single customer, which is really interesting. So, customers might land on your homepage. They might land on a collection page or a category page through an ad that's being run, or through a product feed. They might go direct to a product page, add to cart, go to checkout. And we have a merchant, the Body Shop, and like they were having, it was 50% off on some stores. And what was really cool to see was there was a realization that not every customer was having the sale products in their cart. And I believe this is how it went down. I'll have to confirm this to my team, but this is my understanding of what the logic was. They decided, okay, well, if someone doesn't have one of those products that is on sale in their cart, we'll render a banner in checkout using our new campaign upsell component with some recommendations of products that do have that are eligible for that sale, and they immediately saw an uplift in those sales. And like that mentality of the realization, and like that's one example. And again, I will confirm with my team that that's actually how the narrative went. But that's one example. But there's been others where merchants are starting to realize not every customer is seeing that campaign messaging. Not every customer knows that you're running that sale. So when you've got customers coming through all the different entry points into your store, and now there's AI as well, where none of that's shown, and people are just popping up in checkout. All your brand messaging, the fact that you might be Australian owned, the fact that you ship locally, the fact that you do all this testing on your product or the quality of the goods. They're not seeing any of that. When you just have a blank Shopify checkout, you basically just have a logo on something that's Shopify. And now, obviously, customers, they look at a Shopify checkout and they go like, this is a secure website. Like, I think Shopify, because it's so standardized, gives consumers confidence. But all of that messaging and all of that brand content doesn't exist. So by bringing that into checkout, you're actually creating a way better experience that's consistent with all of the other customer journeys, and you're helping that conversion piece. And there's a lot of upsell apps that just throw upsells into checkout, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, we're adding value because there's upsells. But the reality is that's one part of it. Anyone can add upsells to checkout. The real benefit that we're seeing with merchants is actually starting to go, okay, my checkout is kind of its own mini storefront at this stage, and I can create different experiences based on what we identify as in the customer's cart, where they are, and how frequently they're buying from us, or if they bought from us at all. And that's where the secret sauce is, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, like there's that, there's that double dipping of analytics that happens between apps, doesn't it? Like, and all apps, it's almost unavoidable. You could be cynical about it and say all the apps are trying to take all the credit for all the revenue, but really it's about not just proving the value, but like, using wherever you're at today, you want to improve on that tomorrow. So if you're you've got the numbers that are in front of you, using those to decide, all right, what can we do better? What can we do more of? What do we need to do less of? That's the real key there, isn't it?
Yeah. And like, that's a really good point. You and I have both worked agency. And like personally, I hate products that go like, oh, well, they saw our modal and, they bought the product a day later and we're saying that they bought that product because of us. We made a conscious decision at Checkout Components where, because of our infrastructure, we listen to the auto-create webhooks from stores, and we add a line item property or a meta field against the order when someone adds to cart with our product. And if they add to cart and buy in that same session, that's the only way that line item property or meta field could appear against the product. If they add to cart, go away, come back, and that order, that cart expires, or they, whatever, they remove the product and then buy it. They remove the product and they've added it in checkout, then go back to the storefront and they go, actually, you know what, I am going to buy it, and they add it to cart, and then they buy that same product. Our line item attribute isn't there. We don't claim any impact at all. So we're very brutal in our revenue attribution because we want to be honest. And I think that's a thing that brands really like about our product. It's like, we're not trying to fabricate any sort of, intangible, numbers. It's like, no, they added it, that product wouldn't exist in their order if it wasn't for us. Then that's us.
And people see through the bullshit there, don't they? Like I've seen analytics dashboards, not so much these days, but you used to sometimes see like analytics dashboards where I've even seen like this app has generated more revenue than your site has actually generated and stuff like that. And so it's like that. It's pretty important, like especially now you've got to have that credibility, and it's something I'm seeing across the board from people I speak to on this show is like just that most the good developers build that way, and it's a really big trust indicator for whether you're a good platform is being able to actually show that. And there's no excuses not to have that, are there?
Yeah. I mean, I can empathize with engineers that have built a product and, merchants are asking for analytics and they go, oh, okay, well, we'll strap that together. If you haven't built an analytics system before, like yeah, it's pretty easy to go down the route of like, oh, this hasn't been built correctly, and we're actually not getting real data.
Yeah,
Checkout components. We launched a new data and analytics platform earlier this year. That was the third analytics system that I had built and designed.
yeah, yeah,
And like the original version was impressions, views, and revenue, and then that turned into something that was a little bit more refined and tighter, and it handled all discounts and multi-currency. And then the next one was, okay, we want to start tracking impressions and views and drop-offs and checkout, and how do we have a full coverage of the checkout experience, to basically enhance what merchants can see in the default Shopify Shopify dashboard. How do we just basically create an entire new view exclusive to checkout? So yeah, if you haven't built an analytics system before, it's like,
yeah,
how do you handle that much data for number
yeah,
one, and not,
yeah,
get a $10,000 build from Google?
yeah, yeah, and also,
So
yeah. Also, you can bury people as well in numbers then, can't you, as well? Like, I think that's the thing too,
yeah,
like, as we, particularly now, like when you've got some of these tools, like even like you can use Claude or Gemini or whatever to actually build some really good insights for you so quickly.
yes,
And
yeah,
having a dashboard that's got, 15 drill downs on it is actually, people are losing the attention span to even use that anyway, aren't they? So just
yeah,
having the good data there gives people good stuff to use.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And actually, I was going to talk to you as well about something. I think I saw you post about it on LinkedIn the other day, and it's something I feel really strongly about, and also been telling people is probably almost the most important thing at the moment, not just for agentic commerce, but probably also for a lot of the stuff you're talking about with more people arriving on the checkout quicker, is actually just having really good data in Shopify and how important that is,
Yeah,
and
yep,
using things like the category meta field, sorry, not the meta field, the category field, for example, in line with Shopify's taxonomy. Like, stuff like that is just becoming so important, and people can easily get distracted from just getting those fields right. They're the ones that have the real impact, aren't they?
yeah. Like, there's a lot of I can empathize a lot with ecom managers at the moment. Like, there's an overwhelming amount of information, and
Mm.
if you go onto LinkedIn, there's hundreds of posts a day of like, you should be doing this, and if you're missing out on this opportunity, and oh, have you not done this? Everyone else is doing it, and like, it can be overwhelming. And I jump on calls with merchants all the time, and part of our onboarding process is to go through the product catalog.
Mm.
It's like, okay, what do you got? What do you have too much stock of? Like, how do we get rid of that? Like, how do we actually have an impact more than just being like, oh yeah, like throw upsells and checkout? That's like, yep, cool. Like, how do we actually assist you achieve the goals that you have from whoever you report to, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I made that post because time and time again, I'm jumping into stores and like, people are screaming, oh, you've got to have your data and you've got to do this. And it's like, yeah, like that is really, really important. But like, where do you start with that? If you don't
Mm.
have an agency, if you don't have technical people around you, that can be incredibly daunting. And if you've got a large product catalog, then that problem just gets bigger.
Yeah.
Merchants on Shopify have one of the greatest advantages of all time. UCP was defined and released, and then every single liquid store just had a UCP endpoint.
Yeah.
Similarly, you've got product taxonomy. So product taxonomy effectively is Shopify going, okay, Shopify stores have all these products and they've created their own collections. They've defined that category structure themselves. If we were to have something that was more universal, cross-store, we can't just ingest everyone's collections and categories. So we need to have a standardized categorization of products. All of the agentic tools go to Shopify through the UCP or through other means and actually look at the product taxonomy categorization. So, a good example of that is if you got a dress product, Shopify will actually analyze the product information, review the images, and go, okay, cool, here's a category for you. And it actually says in the admin, accept this category. It's already done that work for you. All you need to do is click accept. And then if you click accept, all of these pre-built and defined meta fields pop up, which does a bunch of your product enrichment for you, again, all through Shopify's AI. And if you've got that done for your entire catalog, that effectively just like, that's a really good entry point because it's such low effort and high impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a merchant and you're watching this, like, start
Yeah.
there.
Oh, that's it. No, it's something I've been spending a lot of time on, and I've actually just built an app that does that in bulk, because that's one of the challenges. It's so great,
Yep.
the AI at a product level there, but it doesn't. It's hard if you've got thousands of products that you need to go and retrospectively assign those categories to. It can be tricky. So yeah, I'll plug my own app for once, and we've just launched
Yeah, do it.
we've just launched product Pelican in the App Store, and yeah, that it essentially is solving that problem and doing those health checks on products and trying to evolve with I guess the UCP framework in general it's evolving so fast. Like, as we were talking about, like with Chat GPT and their flip flops, like it seems like the best practice is still evolving. So yeah, getting those basics done and being able to manage that in bulk and also check it on an ongoing basis. I'm biased and think that's really important, having spent a lot of time dealing with product catalogs for people over the years. But
Yep.
yeah, it's great to get your insights on that as well. And I'm seeing across the board, like also like inventory is another one as well. We're just like having really accurate inventory in the inventory fields. I was talking on the last episode, I was talking to Jordan from Pimsicle, and he's like built a platform to allow you to do stock takes and stuff like that, which doesn't sound like anything to do with having a good checkout experience or good integration with UCP and that sort of stuff. But those things are just still so important. And I think for merchants, they need to not get distracted from that with the shiny stuff, do they?
Yeah, I think, no one knows where any of this is going.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. And it looks like neither does OpenAI. I would say one thing that's always going to be true is like your data and, if you go back to basics, it's like, are we manipulating product prices with liquid code on the storefront and then applying a discount retroactively because, agentic commerce is going to get the actual price that's stored against the products in Shopify. So that's a red flag too. So like go back to basics, make sure the prices are accurate, your shipping costs are actually, ingestible by UCP and your product data. That's like, no matter what happens with all of this agentic stuff, it's always going to go to your product data. So clean that up, because at least that will be sorted, and whatever does happen, you'll be prepared.
Yep, absolutely. All two key takeaways from this are, get your product data right and get your checkout right, because everyone's buying your products and everyone's going through your checkout. And if you've got those two things right, then as the other journeys all change and people move around, then that is your safety zone, I guess.
Absolutely.
And now you've just come back from Vegas as well. You went over to Shop Talk this year. So you said no one knows exactly where things are heading, but surely you've come back from there with all the answers and solutions. What was the word on the ground over there?
I really like going to America, particularly or North America, for e-commerce related conferences, because it's kind of like jumping into the future a little bit. Like Australia, like we're always kind of 6 or so months behind what's actually really happening, which is kind of funny. So you get on a plane, you fly to the States, and then you see all of these new tech partners that are like, oh yeah, they're growing rapidly and getting market share over there. And it's like, okay, well, how long is it going to take for them to arrive here? And different principles. But what was actually really encouraging was I did get the opportunity to talk to some platinum partner agencies that are based in Canada and the States, and also some merchants. And the concept of where our product is moving was incredibly validated, which is that merchants and agencies, particularly CRO agencies, are starting to realize that checkout is a real critical part. I mean, it's always been critical, but now looking at all the different ways that customers can find your products, and with the backflip from OpenAI, it just kind of goes, puts emphasis on, okay, checkout is the point that is only guaranteed. And, that personalization aspect is becoming more and more important, because, ultimately, and like you would have seen this in your career as well, like brands will spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year trying to personalize the e-commerce experience and then do nothing in checkout. So if you're investing in that personalization and you're not doing it in checkout, well, then you're kind of like leaving the most critical step out of your strategy. So, we're working on some pretty ambitious things in that space currently, which, will hopefully be in market
Yeah.
You're not too far away. And like, if you've been paying attention to my LinkedIn posts, you can kind of see that there are core pillars that we've been releasing
Yeah.
to support a much more ambitious product. Data analytics platform, A/B testing, increased, conditional rendering and checks against customer,
Mm.
tags and RFM groups and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, brands are a little bit more experimental over there. Obviously, with A/B testing, a feature that we recently shipped, we're seeing a lot of merchants use that feature, and they're
Yeah.
actually figuring it out for themselves and going, okay, cool. Like, what if we show, we use Shopify AI versus we use a Nosto, or if we use these trust badges versus these trust badges, like what's the
Yeah.
impact and conversion? So that's been really, really interesting to see. So yeah, I would say everyone's talking about AI, of course.
Yeah.
A lot of people are having opinions that, maybe don't necessarily fully understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's always going to be the case. But at least from a checkout perspective, it was encouraging to see that merchants are starting to think the way that we're thinking.
Yeah.
And, it's part of my responsibility, I think, as well, to sort of bring that change of mindset to Australian merchants in particular, because it is a competitive landscape, and
Yeah.
we're a small country, and like I love seeing Aussie merchants win. So it's like, how do we bring that change of thinking and enable those merchants, particularly here in Australia, to make the same wins?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of catches on like wildfire in Australia once it does catch on, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the probably smaller ecosystem, is that if it does take a little bit longer to get started, you'll see, like you've used the body shop as an example, and yeah, some of the other merchants you're working with in Australia, they all talk to each other, don't they? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's also just interesting to hear what's happening over in the States and elsewhere. But yeah, I also think, like, as much as Australia maybe seems a little bit behind, like I've worked with quite a lot of merchants in Europe, and I think they're actually quite a long way behind Australia in terms
Oh.
of at least in terms of their Shopify adoption, because
Mhm.
and it's a much more fragmented market. And yeah, like I think like
Yeah.
the stuff like the segmentation and stuff that you're coming up with, like that to me has a massive opportunity in a region like Europe, where you do really need to be hyper focused on different experiences, different languages,
Mhm.
different cultures in such a
Absolutely.
condensed area.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, when we shipped a translation feature probably middle last year,
Mm.
and you know, when I look at building out a feature, I kind of look at the landscape, and if we're going to do something, it's got to be better than everyone else. That's kind of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my ethos. Otherwise, like, what's the point of doing it? And there are a bunch of apps that you could translate, and you had like this top level sort of setting where there were defined fields that you could translate in those defined fields. With checkout components, you can basically swap language when viewing a component and translate anything.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that, like, for our European customers, that our products, regardless of the detected language of the customer, they could basically translate any content, including imagery, with our components. And once we released that, we started making some noise about it in Europe. We've seen significant growth, like uh, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Finland. Funnily
Mm.
enough, they were in our top five uh, locations or
Yeah.
countries for use of checkout components. We've got just over 600 installs now, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, in terms of Australia, it's like Europe's our next largest pod,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, I'm going to wrap up. I actually could just talk all day about this topic, but I always try and keep the chats to about half an hour, because I think people will start to become less interested than I am. But I'll give you the chance to finish up and just sort of tell us a little bit about, sort of what the next 6 months looks like for checkout components. Like you're dropping new stuff all the time. You've got some big changes coming up.
Yeah, well, I think, like, for me, we've been kind of entirely product-led growth at this stage. We haven't really invested too much in marketing, and like that's been something that we've started to do this year, which is really exciting, and that's leading to other opportunities, and partnerships as a core focus for us. The things that we've been shipping recently to production, we're working very closely with some of our largest merchants. Because large merchants have access to large amounts of data, and we're able to work and collaborate with them on those features. So, we're looking at that. And then, I think where the market's sort of moving in terms of checkout's the only guaranteed touch point. We're really going to try and meet merchants there and give them the tools that they need, which does not require a developer for them to be able to get these benefits, that they can self-onboard, self-use, and maybe with a little sprinkle of AI here and there. That's where we're going to move. So our focus is very much around impacting conversion equally as AOV, but giving merchants access to more insight. A lot of merchants will just track one AOV and one conversion rate. I think that's potentially hiding a lot of opportunity. So
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's just so much data there, isn't there? And the fact, like you touched on the point that you don't need a developer to build this stuff either. Like you should be able to rock up any day of the week if you're an e-commerce manager and look at pick a problem or a piece of your business you want to try and optimize, get some data on it, look at what the segments are and build something that you can go and test and roll out. And sometimes it wins, sometimes it loses, doesn't it? But like you've got so much power there. And so, I know this conversation has sort of got me excited about all the things that can be done for merchants on the checkout. So I hope everyone listening has sort of taken away something similar to that. So thanks so much for joining. As I said at the start, we should have done this in face-to-face given we're in Melbourne. And it's the first time I've actually had someone also from Melbourne on the podcast. So thanks so much, Blake. And look forward to seeing everything happening with checkout components throughout the rest of the year and beyond.
Thank you so much for having me, Martin. I appreciate it.